So this is a video that I have been dreading about making for a while now because I have not wanted to make this video because the Las Vegas Raiders are yet another team that is in the AFC conference that has frustrated me outside of the Colts, who I wanted to see win a championship. The Broncos, who I've always said had talent around the quarterback position, but they just needed a quarterback. So when they signed Russell Wilson, I was like, okay, so they are now Super Bowl contenders and they have not looked like it. The Chargers making all those big free agent signings because the Rams won their title last season. I thought that they would be a factor. And I just had the AFC conference being a toss-up, like a true toss-up. Who was going to come out of the AFC? That was the excitement for me. Who was going to make it into the Super Bowl coming out of the AFC? It wasn't going to be a guarantee that the Chiefs were going to make it. Bills, toss-up in the air. But after seeing the Las Vegas Raiders lose yet another close game to the Colts this past Sunday, and then Derek Carr getting emotional, having an emotional breakdown at the podium for his post-game interview, I was like, you know what? I think I need to talk about this dumpster fire of a team. Going into the season, looking at the roster, Hunter Renfrow, Josh Jacobs, Darren Waller, and then the signing of Davante Adams, and now the emergence of Matt Collins, who has been fantastic for this team this season. Then on the defensive side of the ball, Max Crosby, Denzel Perryman, Chandler Jones, who he hasn't really been performing like I thought he would. He hasn't really been as dominant as he was when he was in Arizona, when they were irrelevant, and when he was with the Patriots. But watching this team so far this year, it seems like they can't figure out what they want to do. They can't figure out their identity. So week 1 against the Chargers, they clearly made it their mission to get Davante Adams involved. 17 targets, 10 receptions, 141 yards, 1 touchdown. The next week against the Arizona Cardinals, Derek Carr spread the ball around. Hunter Renfrow was targeted 10 times, had 7 receptions. Darren Waller, 8 targets, 6 receptions. Matt Collins, 8 targets, 5 receptions. Foster Moreau, 4 targets, 3 receptions. Davante Adams, though, he had 7 targets but only 2 receptions. So Davante Adams didn't really have a big impact in that game. Then against Tennessee, Matt Collins had a breakout game. 11 targets, 8 receptions, 158 yards, 1 touchdown. Then against the Broncos, Josh Jacobs has a monster day. 28 rushing attempts, 144 yards, 2 touchdowns. And he was targeted 6 times, had 5 receptions for 31 yards. Going to the Chiefs, Josh Jacobs again, 21 rushing attempts, 154 yards, 1 touchdown. 5 targets, 5 receptions, 39 yards receiving. Against the Houston Texans, Josh Jacobs again, 20 rushing attempts, 143 yards. He was targeted 4 times, had 3 receptions. Oh, and he also had 3 rushing touchdowns. Then we go to Jacksonville. Josh Jacobs, only 17 rushing attempts, 67 yards rushing. Targeted it 3 times, 3 receptions. But Davante Adams, 17 targets, 10 receptions, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns. Everybody else had 4 or less targets, 3 or less receptions. And then against Indianapolis, Josh Jacobs, 21 rushing attempts, 78 yards rushing, 1 touchdown. But Davante Adams, 4 targets, 9 receptions, 126 yards, and 1 touchdown. Everybody else had 4 or less, 6 or less targets, 4 or less receptions. So there's just no identity. One week, Davante Adams goes off, everyone stays quiet. Next week, Davante Adams stays quiet, everyone else kind of gets involved. Then for like a couple weeks in a row, Josh Jacobs gets involved, and then everyone else is pretty quiet. Then one week, Josh Jacobs gets involved, and then Davante Adams gets involved. So there's just no consistent flow to their offense. They don't really know what they want to do. And I think when you have all this talent, when you have a Davante Adams, a Josh Jacobs, a Hunter Renfrow, when you have all this talent on this roster, me personally, I think that they should run the football because I'm an old soul. I saw teams run the ball on 1st and 2nd down, try to dominate at the line of scrimmage, and I think that's what the Raiders should do. Josh Jacobs shouldn't feel like an afterthought, and I think the Raiders should have tried to dominate at the line of scrimmage, slow things down, utilize the play action, and then if they want to make things go a bit faster, you can go 4 wide, you can go 5 wide. You have talent that can beat cornerbacks one-on-one. The sky is the limit for this offense. Spread the ball around. If you want to make Davante Adams your main target, okay, fine, I get that. But you also have Hunter Renfrow, and then you have the emergence of Matt Collins. So I think the Raiders should have tried to do a better job of spreading the ball around, getting other guys involved. Each guy should have gotten at least maybe 7 to 10 targets per game. Josh Jacobs should have gotten at least maybe 6 targets and averaged about 20 touches per game as well. This is an offense that is capable of going over the top, stretching the defense out, making big plays, and slowing things down if they want to. they can do whatever they want. This is an offense that is capable of doing whatever they want. And I think the coaching staff didn't really do a good job of trying to utilize this talent to its full potential. So if Josh McDaniels goes, can you imagine what a Sean Payton would do with this offense? Oh my gosh, immediate Super Bowl contenders. I guarantee you this team will look like a Super Bowl contender, at least offensively. Another reason why I think the Raiders failed this season is that they didn't finish teams off. So going back to the last game against the Colts, the Raiders score off of a 48-yard touchdown pass to Davante Adams, although I think you got to give a bit more credit to Davante Adams for that play, creating yards after the catch. Then Colts go down. Matt Ryan completes a pass to Paris Campbell for a 35-yard completion that went for a touchdown. And there were 3 Raiders DBs around him, and they don't make the tackle. They kind of just, hey, we'll just stick our arms out and hope for the best. We don't really lean into him and try and put our weight on him and try and tackle him to the ground and give our defense a chance to at least have Indianapolis kick a field goal. Against Jacksonville, the Raiders get off to a 17-point lead. It's 17-0 in the second quarter. Then after that, they score 20, and then Jacksonville goes on to win the game 27-20. They don't score no more than 20 points. So they got off to a fast start in the first half and only came out with 20 points at the end of the first half, and then did not score any more for the rest of the game. Going back to the Chiefs, you have a chance to get a big game on the road against a very talented Chiefs squad who is in your division. You complete a pass to Davante Adams for a 48-yard touchdown. Then Josh McDaniels decides to go for it. Coaching nowadays is so stupid. Teams are going for it when they don't need to. They don't kick the field goals. They don't punt it. They go for it when they don't need to. So they go for it. They don't get it. But they stop the Kansas City Chiefs on their next possession. So if they had kicked the extra point, it would have been 30-30. And then all they would have had to do was get in field goal range, milk the clock, kick it, and go home with a win. But they don't do that. So they blow yet another game. That's another game that they blew. Then Arizona, you allow the comeback. I remember Max Crosby had a chance to get Kyler Murray down on the ground, but he was able to convert a play, and then you don't really put the ball in Josh Jacobs' hands. You take the ball out of his hands and don't try to slow things down and milk the clock. Not having an identity and not being able to finish teams off, I believe, is what killed the Raiders' season. So in situations like this, especially with a team like Las Vegas that has all this talent, usually someone gets fired, and that person is usually the coach. Will Derek Carr go? I don't know. And speaking of Carr, I like Carr. I think he has the talent. I've always thought he's had the talent, but he just makes too many mistakes. And if you're going to be the franchise quarterback, you can't make the same amount of mistakes that he has made in his career. Of course, it's not all on him, of course. It's never one guy's fault. It's a team sport. It's football. But there have been times this season, like the Saints, I thought he looked absolutely awful. It just felt like he was just slinging it around, and he'll make throws that will make you go, wow, how'd he do that? That was a beautiful ball that he threw. It was well placed. Only his receiver could get it. And then he'll make a throw where it'll leave you scratching your head like, what the hell was he looking at? So Carr needs to be better. I've been saying this for years now. I don't know. He might go too. But then again, who you going to get to come in and fill for his spot? Who do they have? But all I know is that this was yet another disappointing year for the Raiders. And another reason as to why the AFC conference has been so disappointing to me for a good majority of the season. I've not been too happy with how this conference has shaken out so far. So those are my thoughts on the Raiders. Please like and subscribe. That is it. I am out.